One of the biggest social issues in today's society is drug use, also known as substance misuse. In 2015, drug overdose became one of the leading causes of injury death, resulting in 52,000 people reported dead. Clearly, this is a very, very big issue, but I believe that as a society and a community, we can find ways to help prevent and reduce those numbers. Now, in a modern world, drug use has become very, very popular and it's everywhere. You can find it in homes, you can find it in private, you can find it in public, schools, workplaces. It's spread to everywhere. And it's hard to completely erase something that is so prominent, but there are ways to help limit drug use. But before we even dive into any sort of solution, we need to first analyze what drug use is actually doing to our community. To start, we can first talk about how drugs affect people themselves. Parents who misuse drugs often end up with children who are in prison, who are psychiatric, who become homeless, who have behavioral or emotional problems, and any mothers who take drugs during pregnancy often have their babies harmed or become addicted to that same drug. And children are likely to have emotional problems connected to the effects that drugs have on their parents, and that's because of addiction. And this is also known as dependence syndrome, which is diagnosed if there are strong desires, impaired control, persistent use, priority raise or tolerance, or even withdrawals from not taking them. And if you build a tolerance to a certain drug, have withdrawals if not taken, that means that there is an addiction. And that will cause a lot of emotional stress on children and also spouses and families as a whole. On the more database side, we can tell that illicit drug use happens most likely between the ages of 18 and 25. Funny enough, this is when most people are in college, and the Drug Enforcement Administration did a study on this specifically, comparing non students and college students when it comes to drug use. And in this study as well, 22% of college students used marijuana in the past month. Even more so, athletes are more likely to partake in drug use and alcohol abuse compared to non athletes in college. The effects of this are not as great as one might think. Anyone who partakes in drug use will likely end up with a less enjoyable job after graduation, will likely develop an addiction to any sort of drug or alcohol, have poor performance on exams, risks of assault both ways, and dropping out, and in worst case, injury or death. Clearly, drug use is not okay for our community, and even more so, drug use is still present between the ages of 12 and 17. Even overdose is still present. That is not okay for children to be partaking in any sort of drug use, and our community should not be stepping aside and letting that happen. Now, there are already efforts to try to reduce drug use in our community and in our country. However, I've proposed an idea that will help us gain knowledge. And at the state level, as of right now, some drugs are illegal. And nationally, they are targeting drug traffic networks and also strengthening border security. However, I would like to highlight what our world is doing or trying to do, which is community education. And I believe that as a nation, we should be highlighting that significantly. A lot of people are uneducated about drugs and they don't know the dangers of it before they get addicted and before they danger themselves. So I believe we could incorporate some sort of class or maybe a presentation to show everyone about drug use and the dangers of it, maybe in schools, ads, signs, posters, anything that could capture your attention and say, hey, this is bad. And I believe that with that, we could at least capture people's attention and make sure they stay safe. And hopefully, compared to 10 years ago, the 50,000 death count 10 years later, coming to now, will be less.